Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Secretary, always good to see you.
Absolutely. Good afternoon.
Just a couple things. I have a couple questions. I do want to reiterate something that Chairman Adolph had said earlier concerning the Basic Education Funding Commission's formula that they had. I know the Chairman mentioned that he was part of the, he's at the table, they talk about these formulas. I can tell you up front that this is an issue that's discussed amongst people who aren't even in leadership. There's emails going around in the caucus, and I will say, as the Chairman did, I'm still trying to struggle. I'm struggling with getting my hands around. We're in a very tough budget year, and we're trying to push dollars out. And we see school districts such as Reading, Allentown, York, Erie, and Lancaster. They end up losing. I mean, it's over $1 million if we. And I have the analysis here. And I just, my district includes part of Lancaster City, I should say Lancaster School District, not Lancaster City, but Lancaster School District. And of course, once again, my home school district, Conestoga Valley, really, they get hit pretty hard in this. And all school districts in Lancaster County do. So I don't know, and maybe I need to redouble back on the chairman's question. Why doesn't the governor want to use the fair funding formula for 15-16? I mean, I know 16-17 he does, and as you said, there's been a lot of bipartisan support. Why not just do it? And maybe we'll get to that point. Maybe that's going to be part of getting this budget done, because I do think it's a sticking point in getting the budget across the goal line.
So I know that there's been lots of discussion around the allocation of the 15-16 funds, and fully understanding the argument, on both sides of this issue. I have to take a moment and share, as we've discussed this specifically, within the administration and with the governor, it's understanding the need to build that foundation. School districts, over the course of 4 years prior to our first recommendation, it was that equal cut versus the equitable reduction, conversation, and he fully intends, as we move forward with the 16-17 budget, to allocate those funds according to the recommendation of the commission. However, he's also committed himself to try his best, and we've committed ourselves to try our best to try and offset many of the disproportionate reductions that occurred years prior.
I'm just letting you know that's a sticking point, and I think it's somewhat problematic in a very tough budget year. A couple other quick questions. I have here in the governor's budget book that 96% of school districts across the Commonwealth submitted a funding impact plan to the Department of Education. Mm-hmm. How do you evaluate, or is that the benchmark you use? Is it what they want for spending, or is there a different set of guidelines that you follow to meet accountability and determine what's correct there?
Well, what we wanted to make sure at that time, with significant requests for increased funding, that they were going to utilize that funding in ways that most benefited students. So, for example, we just wanted to be sure, by having them report how they were expecting to use those funds, and the top three were pretty significant. First, to increase their full-day kindergarten and early childhood course offerings. Second, to provide the resources needed to align to the newly, at that time, newly updated Pennsylvania core standards, and third, to provide intervention programs for students who were, of greatest need within their districts. So when we made that request to school districts, it was an attempt to have them share out and us monitor, for lack of better terms, although there were no sanctions associated with it, to make sure that the money was used in the classroom.
I guess what I'm wondering, though, if it's like a Christmas list. If I came to you and I said, Pedro, I want 3 of these items for Christmas, or can I have all of them? Is that the benchmark they're using, though, that they need to get everything that they've asked for? I guess that's what I'm curious.
I understood. So I think if it were done the opposite, if we've asked them to send us a list and how much they need to fulfill the list, it may be a Christmas list. But what we've done is we've said, here's what we're asking for in terms of allocation how will you invest this? Obviously, they weren't able to invest in all of the areas they had anticipated, but we just wanted to make sure that money was being used in the classroom.
Thank you. One last question. It's a little bit dicey, I guess, but recently the department distributed a document on how to close schools. And given this current tough budget environment, it made me feel uncomfortable when I saw that. It made me feel as though the governor is actually supportive of schools closing in order to create a crisis. That's even though I believe it was the budget office said we have they certified $29.7 billion in revenue. So there is money there for education. We talked about the $3 billion cut. And I wanted to get a feel for that to see if, what the thought process was on that, because it did make me feel uncomfortable. Because I do think we're all up here trying. I know we have disagreements, but I think we're all working very hard to try to reach a solution. And I just wanted to get your feedback on that particular letter that went out.
Thank you for asking the question. We had, in working with our partners in the General Assembly, that had been shared with us as well. And the strategy we engaged in releasing this document for consideration, because there are no means under school code to close schools for budgetary reasons, for fiscal reasons. And the means by which we shared the document, we tried to actually not create this sense of panic or crisis by using the IUs, by sharing the document with the IUs for supporting guidance of any school district who may be in need of it. We tried to not just distribute it out to every school district and create panic, and then also the flip side of it, to not have anything available to those students who may be in need of that guidance. Ultimately, I think we in the department, we find ourselves as a supporter of process and being pretty much that system of support. We always teeter that fine line between, what's a messaging issue or could be construed as political versus what guidance school districts need. And we try to do it in a guidance way and not create mass panic. I would also share, we were not trying to share the document covertly. The moment we shared it with the IUs, we did share 4 copies with the members, each of the caucuses, chairs of the General Assembly. So we were very open and honest and transparent around, sharing the document and why we shared the document, and understand, the concern.
Well, as I said, I appreciate you being here today. It's always a pleasure seeing you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time.